Mr. Bill Vincent Sr., a longtime resident of Sanford, is going to narrate the pictures which we're about to see. They belong to a rather fabulous and large collection which he has acquired over many years and has been kind and generous enough to share with us so that the students and the residents of Seminole County would have a chance to see these pictures.
Hello, folks. This is Bill Vincent, and I want to take you on a little trip into Sanford. We're down at Old Fort Florida dock right now. We're going east towards Sanford, and the old Fort Mellon dock, the old Fort Florida dock is northwest of the old railroad bridge at Lake Monroe. So here we go now. The next thing we come to is the old railroad bridge, and then beyond that, going east is the automobile bridge across the river. And as we're looking at the next picture, is the Clyde Line boat Osceola going north on the river down toward D-Land. Then we have a view of the old Clyde Line boat, the Osceola, with Captain Lund standing up on the deck. The next one is the Clyde Line dock in Sanford, about 1917, 1918, with the Osceola out in front. Now we are looking at the Osceola on Lake Monroe with a little boat there in the distance, Mr. John T. Brady's boat. And the Osceola is headed across the lake towards Enterprise. The gentleman standing up here is Captain Lund. He's on the deck of the Osceola, getting ready to go up to the pilot house. The next view, you see the city of Jacksonville. That came on the river about 1884. It's crossing Park Avenue going north. And in the distance there, on the right, is the Weldon block and the old Florida Land and Colonization Company building. The palmetto trees right there on the right are right in front of what is now the new courthouse. The next boat is the Fred K. DeBerry, owned by Count DeBerry of Enterprise. She's going down the river. She was a boat similar to the City of Jacksonville, but owned by Count DeBerry. This view is of the Count of the Fred K. DeBerry coming into Sanford, with all the folks on the deck up and down. She was a passenger and freight boat. This picture is of the Weelacker steamer that used to come into Sanford many, many years ago, named the Weelacker. The boat we have here now is a picture of the City of Sanford, owned by the St. John's River Line, owned by Thrasher Brothers of Jacksonville. It was a steel diesel boat, haul freight on the river. The next view is of the old city dock in Sanford at the foot of Park Avenue, and the boat's out in the front there. This view is of the Baby Heck, a boat owned by Mr. Walter Hand and Mr. Ed Rice. This boat was built in Sanford and made trips in the wintertime up to Lake Harney, to the old dock on Lake Harney, just east of Geneva. It hauled oranges and all kinds of different things down the river in the wintertime to the boats at the Clyde Line dock, go north. This view is a picture of the old boat, the Chloris, was owned by the Florida Fish and Produce Company. And Mr. Ed Rice is standing on the deck. It was what we called in them days a run boat. Went all the way up to Lake Harney after fish there every day, and would bring fish down the river to the main dock here at Sanford. This view is a very old view, about 1890. And it's taken out in front of Sanford Avenue. The little steamboat there, and the old docks, 3 docks were what they used to call the city wharf docks. And in the back there is the, on the left side, is the Hochstein building. And right on up is a building across First Street and Sanford Avenue, which was known as the old Leffler building. Now we're looking at the old fiber plant down on Myrtle Avenue on the lake shore. And at one time it was a Cypher sawmill, but at this time we are told it was belonged to the Diamond Match Company people, and they had a fiber plant there, and they cut palmetto buds and made them up into fiber brushes. In the distance is a little boat that run a little speedboat. The OU Kid was owned by Mr. Ed L. Vincent of Sanford. His father bought it for him in 1916. He bought the boat from Mr. Billy Hill. In this view, you see the city of Jacksonville, docked at the Tri-Line dock about 1916-17. And the city of Jacksonville was the first steamboat on the St. Johns River to have a steam generator for electricity. They had searchlight, because no boat until this boat come on the river had the searchlight. It had they just had mirrors up in front on the boat at night up on top deck, and they'd build a fire out of fat lighted knots, and they had these steel mirrors, and they would reflect the light, so they couldn't go very fast. In this picture, in 1925, the old globe dredge Niagara from Savannah, Georgia, was dredging and filling in what we call the old city pier down there at the foot of Park Avenue. The water was pretty high, as you see there in the distance. This view is of the city pier after it was finished with the band shell put out there on the end of it. And this picture is a very good close-up of the pier. In the distance, you see, you're looking down towards Park Avenue from the north as you come into Sanford. And this is the pier with the band shell. They had taken it away, tore it down, and the Sanford Zoo is on the right side. This view is of the lakefront, looking towards the Standard Oil Company on the right and the Gulf Oil Company on the left. These storage tanks were for gasoline, and they operated to just about 7-8 years ago. When the boats were cut out on the river, it would cost too much to run the gasoline up the river. You know. Now, folks, we're looking at some primitive houses. A lot of people lived on the St. Johns River back in the early days. They'd go out in the scrub, out in the swamp, and get these palmetto fans and some pine saplings, make a frame out of the pine saplings and cover them over. All they needed was some nails to tack these palm fans on the top and sides and make a house. So it didn't cost very much. The next house we see is a primitive house out in the pine woods, made out of palmetto, out of logs. Even the fireplace is made out of sticks and mud. And these people live very primitive out in the pine woods. The next house is a little better house. These people were quite dressed up, had a fine little home back out there, a little farm home. Now the next one we see is a house better even than the last one. It had a main house, and then it had a patio and going between the house and the kitchen. The kitchen was in the back. The last picture here we see of a house is one that used to be out on Sanford Avenue, out south of Sanford. Folks, now we're going back to the city of Sanford. 1882, this picture is Sanford on the Lake Monroe. And we're looking south on Magnolia Avenue towards the old original Episcopal Church. And this church was blown down, the steeple was blown down in the 1880s, and then it was rebuilt again on Park Avenue. Now, on the right side, right west of this old church, you'll see a big building there, a house with a cupola on it. And this building was just recently tore down. It was the old M.F. Robinson home on Park and 4th Street. The next picture we have is the old Orange Hotel. It was on 1st Street, right across from Touchton Building now. And everything in this building was made of orange wood. And I understand that the original building here was moved from Fort Reed, all the way from Fort Reed up there to Sanford, right across there from the old Touchton Building. Now we're looking down Palmetto Avenue, and on the right, where the vacant lot is where Holler Motor Company had their garage for some years. You're looking south. As you're looking south, down on the next block, you see the big house. That is the old Judge Serene house. And they moved, I understand they moved that from Fort Reed into Sanford. Now we're looking at Palmetto Avenue and 1st Street. And the building on the left side is the H.L. DeForest Land Office. And in the center of Palmetto and 1st Street, there is a barrel. And that was one of about the first sulfur wells that was ever in Sanford. This picture shows a better view of the Episcopal Church on Magnolia Avenue. We're looking right here at Palmetto Avenue, but the old church was on Magnolia, I understand. Now we're in downtown Sanford on the lakefront. And the building, first little building on the left here is the South Florida Telephone and Telegraph Exchange Building. And right across from it is the Sanford Grocery Building. And the building to the north of Sanford Grocery Building store is the Clyde Line Storage Warehouse. And the dock run out right side of the warehouse out into the lake. And then on the east of that is the old Sanford House, not Sanford House, but the Sanford Avenue dock. This is a picture showing 1st Street looking west doing it by 1890. And it looks like they were getting ready for a big parade. On the right, you'll see a building with a pointed roof up there. Is the old Stone Grove building. And the building to your left there is the old Jody Mont building. And right on down there is the old Groenstein building. And in the distance on the right can be seen the Orange Hotel. Now the next building is the Leffler building that was on 1st Street and Sanford Avenue before the big fire. The big fire was September 12, 1887, and this wooden building was destroyed and later rebuilt with a brick building. Now we're showing you actual pictures of the big fire of 1887. And you're standing on the corner of 2nd Street and Sanford Avenue looking towards the hotel. Sanford Avenue and 2nd Street looking towards the Sanford House Hotel. This view shows 1st Street from Magnolia Avenue toward towards Palmetto Avenue. And that whole section on 1st Street and back to 4th Street on Palmetto Avenue was all evacuated by the big fire. Now the next picture here is an old Atlantic coastline locomotive crossing the Monroe Bridge. We're facing the bridge from the east, looking west. This picture just shows in the old freight yard, way down by the depot station, the old coaches and trains that come in there. This picture shows the old depot and the old lunch counter was right there. This view shows Mr. Ed Rice standing up beside an old gas lamp down in the freight yard close by the old railroad station. The lakefront is in the foreground in the north there. This view is 1st Street and Park Avenue. It seemed like it was a very cold day. The way the man was shivering with his heavy coat on and the icicles around the old fountain. This fountain stood there in the middle of 1st Street and Park Avenue. This was a group that was very cold too at this time. You see the icicles. Now this fountain was down in front of the little depot, what we call the little depot, and it was right in front of the Pico Hotel. The next view is what some people call Front Street or 1st Street. And on the left-hand side was Mr. Felix Frank and Mr. Artie Smith. Mr. Felix Frank was just a young man, and his father run the dry goods store, men's clothiers. And the street wasn't even paved at that time. And on the right, you'll see Mr. Hines' saloon, advertising Anheuser-Busch beer. This picture shows the old Bishop building, and Mr. Williams, Mr. Brody Williams, his father, is standing there by the barrel, the second man from the left. He run a grocery store there in that building. This picture was in a local meat market back in the early days, and the sign up there says, "Please do not handle the meat." And the man was sawing the pig's head up. And look at the old-time scales that they had. They didn't have computer scales. And look at the string. They pulled the string. They didn't have tape. They had string. This view was a big celebration, 4th of July celebration down on Commercial Avenue with the Sanford Hotel in the distance on the right, Sanford House. And they were having a big fish fire barbecue, and they had tournaments, and on these cattlemen would come in, and they'd have a tournament. And the stake up there with a cross arm on it, they'd put a little ring up there, and they'd take a pool stick and run at it on a horse and see how many them rings they could get. This next view is of the automobile they had decorated for the 1913 parade, celebrating the division of Seminole County from Orange County. And the second gentleman on the left with the straw hat is Mr. Gene Romlett. The gentleman standing in the street on the right is Mr. Artie Smith. This view was taken on the day that they had the parade celebrating the division of Seminole County from Orange County. And the gentleman on the horse is Judge Miller. And the boy with the bicycle was Carl Bruton. This picture was taken in 1913 when Seminole County was divided. And they had a celebration on this porch of the old Sanford house. This is on the east side of the Sanford house, and they had speakers for the occasion. Now we're going to jump across Lake Monroe over to what we call the old Brock House. This house was, the original part was started very early days. And Captain Brock was a steamboat man from up in Connecticut or somewhere in the north, and he got in touch with Count DeBerry, and they formed a boat line, and they brought their own boat, their own tourists down to this hotel. And very prominent people have stayed at this old hotel. And it's all gone at the time now, but the Methodist orphanage stands on the property where this hotel stood. Now we're going to jump back across the river, the lake, and come back to the Sanford house. This is a very beautiful view of the old Sanford house. It was just like it was in the early days. You see the palmettos. There was no bulkhead. The river come almost up to the steps of the old Sanford house. This view is taken from the veranda of the old Sanford house looking northwest. And it shows the old South Florida Railroad dock. That was the only railroad south of Jacksonville. There was no railroad coming from Jacksonville to Sanford. They brought the little trains here, and little narrow gauge trains, and started them here, went south. There were no trains from Jacksonville to Sanford. This is a scene in the Sanford House Park. There is a gentleman and a lady all dressed up. It was a very, very beautiful park. It was maintained by the Sanford House. Look at the tremendous century plant there in the view. This next view is the old Walbert building. It was right there on the corner of Commercial Avenue and Park Avenue. It was in this building, on the second floor, was where the first Seminole County courthouse, when the county was divided in 1913, the first courthouse was right here in this building. And downstairs in this building is where the Seminole County Bank originated. Now this view is about 1910, 1912. This is a view of the Howard Packard Land Company on First Street. And this building is down there where the dollar store is today. Everybody with automobile lined up in this view down at the corner of Park Avenue and First Street, taking a picture of the automobile. And the one man we know who he is the gentleman on the left is standing with a derby and a black suit and a white vest, and it's Dr. Robinson, Mr. Harry and Jim Robinson's father. This is another view, a later view of Sanford. It shows the Seminole County Bank and First Street looking west. Now we come to a picture of a parade in the later day. This is about 1932. We had what we call Farmers' Day parade in Sanford. This is another scene of the Farmers' Day parade about 1932. And the car in the distance here is a little Chevrolet, belonged to the Sanford Herald, and they had Sanford Herald papers all posted on the side of the car, and you can see on the sign it says Sanford Herald. This picture is a later picture. It shows about during the war of a parade when the Navy was in Sanford, and the parade is passing the viewing stand that was right there at J.C. Penney Company. Now we're going back a few years. This is back to about 1919. This is what they call the old scrap iron class by Mr. Forrest Lake. The gentleman on the right side of the lady and the little boy is Mr. Walker, was preacher, minister of the Methodist Church in Sanford. And this was, next to him was Forrest Lake, and next to him was Mr. Dickens, Judge Dickens. And this picture was taken in front of the courthouse. This picture was taken of the old Stone Grove building here recently. It's January 31st, 1972. This was where Jim Robinson had his sporting goods store, and it was burned out on the east side. It didn't bother the furniture store on the west side, because it had such a good building there and such a good firewall so thick it didn't even bother the other buildings.